Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw. Oh, great. Look at that photo. Oh, look at that photo. Okay. So, first of all, it's a scan of a black and white photo. Who is in the image?
Are you speaking of the first one?
It's a black and white photo of a woman wearing a nice, beautiful white blouse,
Yes.
hair, kind of, first of all, very, very contrasting lipstick, seated on a balcony. You could fill us in on where in the world that balcony sits. You're wearing these nice white shoes, a very nice white flowing skirt. It's summer, flowers, bushes. Hopefully people will go onto the website to look at this kind of vintagey photo. I mean, it looks like it was photographed in the 70s, black and white.
This is, I don't know what year it is exactly. I think she was younger then, but this is my mother, Diane.
Ah, okay.
And so my mother was quite a arresting character. She kind of glided into a room, sort of like a 1940s melodrama actress.
Ah, okay.
And she suffered from depression, probably bipolar disease, I don't know. But one of the most influential people in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So my book, 2 Tickets to Paradise, From Cult to Comedy, is a memoir about growing up Jehovah's Witness and being outcast and then, healing those wounds through humor. But it's also a love story between a mother and a daughter, and the daughter's full intent to see her mother again, who died, in a utopian world described as paradise by the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Mm-hmm.
So when she took her own life when I was 9 years old, and unfortunately I was on the scene, first on the scene of the suicide. Wow. And, of course, as a 9-year-old, this is, a huge shock.
How fundamental.
Yes. And we were very close. I have 2 siblings that are my half siblings, but we were close. But of course, they were out of the house by then. They're 10 and 14 years my senior.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of saddled with raising this alcoholic, basically. She was self-medicating with pills and alcohol. And what struck me about this picture when I went to go, gather these 4 photos for you was you see who she is in a snapshot. She was so beautiful. And she was really, her presence in a room was something you never forget. And, I was really taken aback by, I like the way she's leaning in. Mm-hmm. She's giving you direct eye contact, which she always did. Nobody gives anybody direct eye contact anymore. They're looking here, looking there, looking at their phone. But my mother exuded a kind of presence that demanded that you give her the attention that she required. And what I really like about this photo is I do like the flowers in there and the corresponding, or the juxtaposition of it is like a spring summer photo. And I love the breeze that just comes up and gently blows her dress a little bit. And we see her, her pristine white shoes. And then we see those dark lips and those eyes those almond shaped eyes, which I so remember and I talk about in the book. I can read a passage if you want. I think this passage that I wrote about my mother is a very interesting passage because I can't even describe it better than what I wrote it. So if you'd like me to read it, I can. If not, no worries.
Well, okay.
No?
First, yes, you will read it. Yes.
Okay.
2, the gift and the joy. So it's really interesting to me on the left hand, I see you explaining this. On the right, I see a photo of her. And, you both look very similar. It, like I said, it could have been a photo of you, but it's, yeah, the timing is a little bit off.
I
And
take
what,
that as a compliment because
huge, huge, huge.
she's really something.
Yep, and
What a
you,
figure. So I'm really going to take that as a compliment. We're on a
you
good roll
bet,
here already.
you bet.
This therapy is going very well.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, but it's really funny. Like for the listeners and for me, because I'm listening, you say these things because it's your life. So you just sort of say them, and it's fireworks and explosions and bombs, and I was just like, oh man, like where do we begin? I
Sure,
think
it's a lot.
let's begin with you reading.
Okay. So, yeah, it's just a quick paragraph where I describe my mother. This is from page 6 of the book. My mother, Diane, was striking and exacted a certain kind of attention, especially from men. She had long legs, an hourglass figure, and almond-shaped hazel eyes that shone flecks of green in the sunlight. Her smile was easy and had a way of attaching itself to you, tricking you into thinking she was happy, that life was effortless for her. Mom had a strong presence, stage-like and haunting at times, the kind of presence that caused people to steal a second glance. Being around her was like stepping onto the set of a melodrama from the 1940s. She would glide into the shot, head tilted just slightly, the signature gaze locking in on someone, something, as onlookers turned to watch until she was out of shot and out of sight. Meanwhile, I was the goof at her side screaming, "Lady!" in my best Jerry Lewis voice.
Okay, so you're 9 years old. Of course, your mother is going to have this presence because at that age, your parents have that presence, and then over time, it
Right?
kind of it gets deconstructed. But then you mentioned you walked in, like you discovered her having commit suicide,
Yeah.
which is, I mean, for a child, is about as sharp a trauma as a person could imagine,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I feel in your voice, you have this side of you that's terribly tragic. But on the other hand, the opposite side of that is you mentioned stand up comedy or comedy
Mm-hmm. It's stand up.
stand up.
Um, but yeah, this was the beginning of a series of traumas that were, I think, partially initiated by her death. But there was trauma before her death, in managing a depressed or manically depressed alcoholic whose capacity to love was great,
Mm-hmm.
was boundless. And, that's where I think that, of course, they didn't really call it bipolar disease in those days. But from the research that I've done, I would say that she probably was bipolar because her highs were so high
Mm-hmm.
and her lows were so low. And, by this time, both of my siblings have left the house, and it was a lot to manage, So when I discovered her the night before, there was one of her, raging meltdowns. She had we had a baby grand piano in our home. And when she would go into her episodes, she would hit the keyboard and I would build a fort under this piano. Or I would
Okay.
sit on the couch and I would sing lyrics to the songs or whatever.
Oh
It was
wow.
like a little show. And
Mm-hmm.
so I can't believe that I'm not deaf because I was under this baby grand piano and I was just mesmerized by her, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that particular night was a rough night for her. And I had to go to school the next day. I had this big test that I was very concerned about in, I guess, fourth grade. And so I left her a note that I would be back to check on her at lunch. And I just had to go take this test. So, and I went to school. And this is what, to this day, it's just it just really strikes me as, wow, we are all really connected. And I think if you haven't had some experiences where you feel very connected to someone, you
Hmm.
might have doubt about that. But have never doubted it, our connection to one another. I was sitting in class and I was really concerned, but I had to finish this test. I'm being a dutiful little 9-year-old. And this was in Oakland, California, by the way. I grew up in
Hmm.
the San Francisco Bay Area.
Wow.
And the recess bell was about to ring. And I just knew I had to get out of there. And I kept looking at the clock. And this cold wind just whoosh, went right through me. And I
Oh
was
wow.
like, I have to get home right now.
Oh shit.
And I just ran home. And I think that was the moment, I believe, that she left the planet. That was her exit because I was her daughter and I felt that we were very connected. And I think that I knew the exact moment in my life that my mother left the planet. And then when I arrived home, I discovered this right away and went to a neighbor's house next door.
Oh wow.
And I write about this in my book about how I loved this neighbor's baby. She
Okay.
had this great toddler.
Hmm.
And I loved this baby. She was at that great age where it was like big blue eyes. And I would always try to play with this neighbor's baby. And so I went next door and I told the neighbor, I think my mother's sick because I just couldn't process it.
Hmm.
It was too
Hmm.
much.
Hmm.
And she went white as soon as I said that because these were little apartments. She must have heard it.
Oh.
She must have heard it was by gunshot. So I'm pretty sure that she heard it. So she hands me the baby
Oh
and I
wow.
sit down on the floor with this baby. And it was something you just never forget. And I was sitting with this baby and I was holding it and we were looking into each other's eyes.
Hmm.
And I heard the neighbors screaming next door.
Oh.
I just never let go of this baby. And we just looked into each other's eyes. Because see, the thing is that death, I think I wrote about it this way, that we were innocent and strangers in the idea of death.
Hmm.
We were beginning. We were a beginning. We were children. So we were blissfully ignorant in the tragedy of endings.
Yeah.
And so to me, I just held on to that. And when I look back on it, when I went to write the story, I was like, that baby in so many ways saved my life. I
Hmm.
always had something to connect to that was life.
Yep. Yep.
And it was a really important moment for me.
Yeah, for sure.
And I can't say enough about how we really are connected
Hmm.
as human beings. I joke about, I need that energy in the comedy club. I need people. I need
Hmm.
their energy. We feed upon each other's energy, sometimes in a negative way, like all these gross social media posts and fights and all the things that people do. But
Hmm.
we also nurture and feed upon each other in a beautiful way where we're so connected that even you and I right now, I can feel
Hmm.
it, you know,
Hmm.
across the waters.
Yeah. Wow. What is your mom's name?
Diane.
Diane. Okay. Well, I
Yes.
think we will, say au revoir to Diane
Yes.
and move on to the next image.
Yes.
But I want to take a moment and say thank you. I mean, that I never know what I'm going to get to these conversations. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it hits me right between the eyes so profoundly. And that was actually utterly beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, she was a very interesting human being. Yep.
Have you met her daughter? Boo!
you know, this is great therapy. I had this therapist. Obviously have done some therapy, a little bit of work, and she
Who
had this thing,
hasn't?
and I just think this is so funny. In fact, I was just telling another friend. I pass this on to people all the time. I'm like,
Sure.
listen, you need to do this thing. She said, go in the mirror and look in the mirror and hug yourself. Hug
Oh,
yourself
yeah. Yep.
and
Yep.
say, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful you. I was like,
Aw.
should it be wonderful, wonderful, wonderful me? I mean, what what stance am I taking? Is it like first person? As a
Right.
writer, I'm like, is it first person, third person? And I remember saying, Katie, just do what I say.
Yeah.
And I do it sometimes because you do kind of meet yourself in the mirror. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
It does trip me out. I like it though. I do like it.
No, it's great. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful you. I love it. So is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw.